I want to talk to you about using a starter style or CSS starter style when you work with pages in Dreamweaver or HTML or anything generically. You can see right here that I've got my typical formatting out here, like headings and paragraphs. And you probably know by now that when you hit returns and you apply headings, things like that, that there's going to be spaces and stuff that shows up by default. Well, we want to remove that by using a CSS starter style. Now, in the past, what we used to do is if I go over to my style sheet over here, we used to do something like this. On the top, above the body, and let me just do this. I'll click on body in Dreamweaver. We used to create a style, and I'm going to come over here and say new CSS rule, that looked something like this. It was actually an asterisk. Let me put that in there. That's called a universal selector. And if I click OK, we used to then come to things like box and say margin and padding 0. And if you look, you're going to see this is at the top of the list. I'll move it. And I click apply. Look what happens out here to all the stuff. All your paragraphs, all your headings, etc. I'll click OK. And typically this is at the top of the list typically. So I'll move it up here and this is what it looked like. This is called a universal selector and it would say, okay, from everything out there, let's remove the margin and the padding and set it to 0. Now if I turn these off, these properties, you can see I can turn these on and off. You'll see what it looks like before and after. Now this was a great solution just for a simple site because, it pretty much applied to everything. The problem is it wouldn't handle it properly in all major browsers. So we get rid of this. So I'm not going to use that anymore. I'll delete it. And you'll see that in Dreamweaver, they're using these grouped selectors, these are called, like unordered list, ordered list, definition list, and applying margin padding 0 right there. But what we want to do is we want to use what's called a true starter style. So if you come over to your CSS style sheet, if I right-click on one of the styles or control-click, go to code, you'll see it right there. Put your cursor at the very top above body, and I'm going to hit a return to clear some space. What you guys are going to do is typically go out and find a starter style that I think is awesome. I use a lot of different kinds of starter styles, but you guys are going to see one that was created back in 2008 by Eric Meyer, which is great. I mean, he's like one of the kings of CSS. You're going to see right here that if I scroll down, here is the starter style right here. Now, what it does is it basically just says, let's take all of these different objects, HTML, the body tag, span, div, h3, whatever, and let's apply things like 0 margin, 0 padding, remove the borders and outlines and stuff like that. Then they have some separate ones for the body tag right here, for OL, UL, block quote, etc., etc. Okay? Now, what I do is this. You don't have to grab all this, but I do. So I can grab from HTML here down. And you might want to put a little, shout out to Eric there. This is a great little CSS starter style. I'll copy that. I'll go back over to Dreamweaver, and I'll just paste it on top of body here. There we go. Scroll up, and you'll see there's my starter style. Now, if I go back to Design View and click out here, you'll see that it's done pretty much the same thing as that little asterisk, but it's taken it a little bit further. It's removed some of the formatting. And what this does, you guys, is it strips down the formatting so that we can add it later on to our headings, to our paragraphs, things like that. This is called a CSS starter style, and it's a great way to get your job, working, to make it done a little bit easier when you guys are working with CSS so that you don't have to fumble and work with all this, margin padding and do it in every single style. It's one and done, basically. Put your CSS starter style in there, and you're all set to go.